So, anyways,
This is how it's going to feel like.
yeah, we already began. I'm not going to cut anything. Caleb.
Oh no! Look at that.
Usually I would shake my guest's hands, but we're kind of far apart
Yeah.
because of the setup. But Caleb, welcome to my podcast. I'm so glad to have you as my first foreign guest.
Thank you.
I'm nervous to talk in English for a whole episode,
Really?
but I figure it's going to go okay. Just like when we go and grab coffee or something.
We can switch to Serbian if you like. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, we actually need to teach you Serbian. You've been here for like what, 2 years?
2 years, about 3 years, but in total maybe 1 year. But thank you obviously for the invitation. I'm honoured to be the first international guest, and I'm looking forward to it. It'll be very fun. The setup's amazing, and yeah, it's a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah, I was actually thinking, like I for a good 5 months, I was actually negotiating with you to come to my podcast, and it wasn't a negotiation. I was just nagging you into coming to my podcast, and then you did it as a favor. But you're kind of you how could I say this? You kind of like to stay anonymous most of the time. Like you have your Instagram and everything, but you like to stay anonymous. In today's world, like this is my English, like breaking down. Yeah. With business and everything, what do you think are the benefits of staying anonymous? What are the benefits of having a personal brand and being public? And what are the downsides of both?
That's a good question. I think there's pros and cons to both sides. For example, by staying anonymous, where you have completely no social media at all, you stay away from kind of the fake vanity that's gained from, likes, comments, looking at how many people are sharing it. Any bad comments, positive comments, you can be drawn to the positive ones, sure. But for example, you have people who get one negative, and that will be stronger than the 10 positive just in that comment alone. So I guess for some people who care about, what other people think a lot, it would be good to stay off social media. But often it's the opposite. The people who care the most, they come onto the platform, on platforms, and they take on what people say quite strongly. On the other hand, it can be very good for connecting with other people in the space, people in e-commerce, for example. I'm in social media. So I follow lots of business people, and, that's provided great connections. Whenever I'm in a different country, sometimes I get some responding from the UAE. When I'm in Dubai, they're like, oh, I'm here as well. And I'm like, great. And I connected with them because I see that we have lots of mutuals. So from that regard, it can be good for networking, for business, for relationships. Sometimes it comes from that as well. But often it can be, a double-edged sword, as they say. Some of the main benefits are, is the networking, I would say.
Yeah.
And
what is the line you drew on how much you're going to expose yourself on social media?
I think so. I have a secondary, smaller account, and that's for when I post things for like family and friends and more personal things. But the line, I think, would be where it's not for clients to see. For example, might sound strange, but we're presenting ourselves in a way in everything we do, and whether we say a comment online, on a live stream, we drop a comment on a post, whatever it may be, everything is measured, and it's like there's that carbon footprint, I think they say, or social footprint, and I think that's very important, especially with AI increasing now. They're going to be able to scrape all of that at once. So my line is kind of keeping it, very professional, trying to post content that's valuable. Like we did one with Deep Dive Dubai recently, and I don't normally go on the camera, but I thought it would be interesting to do some introduction, say, welcome to Deep Dive Dubai, say some facts, and then post that with content that's edited in as well. And I think that's a fine line because, you're showing yourself a little bit. You're not emphasizing it on yourself. You're doing it more on where you are, how amazing the experience is, and I think that's fine. And it's not like I'm like super famous. If I ever got to millions of followers, I think I would say there are more downsides then because, the attention and when you're out in places and people coming up to you, that's fine. I think that's fine. But if you're like a footballer, for example, I think, it's too much attention. They then have to think about security.
Yeah, you kind of lose your privacy. Like the bigger you are on social media, the more people that know you. Like not even just social media, but Well, then again, today it's all about social media and everything. Like even if you're a movie star, everybody follows you through social media and everything. Like it's just I feel like most people, and I was talking with some influencers actually that are really big in Serbia, and they're like, I don't have any privacy. Like there's no part of their life that's not public, because they feel like they need to film everything, show everything, and even if they go for lunch or something, like people are approaching them and trying to take pictures and taking videos from the side. And but yeah.
I think for some people, that's fantastic. I have a friend called Luca Gaglione, who is from London, with the Italian name, as you can probably see. And he came to Armenia. And as a Brit coming to Armenia, it's very different. Like it's pretty unique, I would say. Obviously, I'm half Armenian and quarter Irish, quarter British. But to see another, I was in the gym actually, and I heard a British accent, and he heard me speaking to someone. He said, "Oh, is that an English accent I hear?" And I said, "Yeah," and we connected. And, you know, he grew even more in Armenia. He was already very big. He had like, I think 2 million followers on Instagram, 10 on TikTok. But by coming to Armenia, because the algorithm on Instagram, for example, is so localized, the attention and the love that the Armenians gave, because we're very, you know, ethnocentric, very patriotic about the country, by him showing Armenia to the world, giving more light to it, it was very good for the country, for him. He loves the country now. He's actually choosing to reside there. It's not just like a business thing. And I think that's the upside of it, of, you know, exposing to the world what hidden beauties are. You know, they're one of the oldest countries in the world, first country to become Christian. So there's a lot of things that I think are very interesting, and they're, you know, amazing at creating wine and cognac. That's where it kind of came from. The first breweries are from Armenia. So in a good way, you know, that attention can be very beneficial. But you're right, at the same time, the privacy element, that's like that's a sacrifice that comes with the fame.
Yeah. You mentioned Instagram algorithm being really localized. What are maybe some like 2, 3, 5 things that you would say are the most important when trying to grow your social media?
In general, or to gain localized
let's say
audiences?
Building a personal brand in general.
Okay. I think when building a personal brand as well, people just purely focus on the content, but I think you should prepare your account as if you already have 1 million followers, 100,000, 10,000, and look like you're ready to receive those followers. I had some clients where, you know, we're growing their page, and they're like, yeah, we're all ready to go. And I said, not just yet, because we need to make sure the page is ready with all of the highlights, making sure all of the old posts are deleted, making sure one of the ones that people forget is the photos of me tagged bar. And they forget to make it review only where they can choose. And they have thousands of spam promotional things from different photos of me. Little things like that. But in terms of on a macro scale on how to grow, content is very key. You need to introduce yourself. People are posting content, you know, thousands of times a minute. So how are you going to differentiate yourself? You need to make sure that it's in the right format, 9:16 for Instagram if it's Reels. You need to make sure that you're using trending music sometimes, or a transition at the start, a little zoom in, zoom out, whatever it may be, some sort of shake, but not too obvious, because when it's obvious, it's very unprofessional. It's not very slick. So it needs to be almost subconscious to stop them scrolling. You know, when you have people scrolling all the time, other than, you know, Instagram's launched an auto scroller. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yes, that was kind of short-lived.
In some countries, they're testing it still.
Still testing?
Yeah, they're still testing.
I had it for like 2 weeks or something.
Really?
Like a year ago.
It's still on my phone.
Really?
I think because it's set to the UK, so that's probably why.
Okay.
But,
they tried in Serbia, like,
yeah, no, it's not working here. Let's get rid of it. And I think that's important to get the basics there, because, you know, Instagram won't promote content as much that's not in the right format. If it's on Reels, it won't even display it if it's not 9:16 now. You have the occasional post showing up if they reformat it automatically, but that's a very small important one that needs to be done. And then, you know, introducing yourself. Why are you different? Is it what you say? Is it how you look? Is it what value you're providing? And being crystal clear on that as well, I think is very important. And stories. People underestimate the value of stories. That stories is the personal touch to every brand, because when you're clicking through it, especially close friends, you feel like you're knowing them. And if you're doing the little polls, the search bars, whatever it may be, then you're going to feel even more close to them, especially if you're responding back. Even if you respond to 2 to 5. For example, CEO of Instagram, Missouri, he every week talks to the followers, and about updates, algorithms, what they're doing, monetization, reels, influencers, everything. And although he does 10 a day, super busy, 10 a week, sorry, super busy man, it makes us wait for it and be like, oh, what's he going to say this week to us? Even though, he's speaking to millions of people. So I think on the personal brand side, those are some of the most important things. What do you think?
What do I think? I don't know. That's why I brought you here. No, just kidding.
Good reflection.
Yeah, no. I think the most important thing is, I mean, of course, yeah. On the technical side, you just mentioned some things that you as a social media, sorry, you as a guy that does social media know all about the technical stuff. But I think the most important thing, correct me if I'm wrong, but we need to remember that we I don't think we have to look at Instagram and TikTok and YouTube as algorithms. There's no algorithm. There are people on the other side. People need to like us. If somebody likes my video, if I make a video that a lot of people like, it's going to be shared. Like I don't know. I think that's my point of view. But then again, I'm not that big on social media, so.
I agree to some extent. I think a lot of people would pick just pure impressions over even being liked sometimes, because sometimes in their business, whatever it may be, they might not even need to be liked. They just need the exposure and they can monetize the views. So I think from an algorithmic perspective, algorithms are without emotions, but you're completely right. If you're not being liked as a person or not being picked up,
I think it depends on the purpose of why do you want to grow your social media. I think that's where we start, and then we differentiate how you do want to do content, how closely do you want to follow the algorithm. Do you just want sheer views, as much views as you can? Like you said, somebody just needs views and he can monetize them or something like that.
That's a good point, and that's another important thing with personal branding is what's your actual goal. There are some people who they're not even doing it for any leads whatsoever. It's just a pure portfolio building. For example, there's a guy called Julian Petrolas. He's a great asset manager for himself. He just manages his own stock portfolio. He definitely doesn't need the money, but he enjoys, posting the content, inspiring people, and that is without algorithm, where you're actually inspiring them. There's no technical gain for you financially, and that's where you need people to pick you up. So I completely agree on that. And and it is inspiring when you can see they're not just selling, and they're just posting raw, authentic content like the podcast, for example, where you're not, saying, you need to bring questions beforehand. It's complete lack of coffee, and that's why I think this is very unique. I think it's very interesting, and I look forward to seeing, where it goes as well. Imagine who's on the 100th podcast, for example.
Yeah, so this is the 13th episode, I think. I think I put out the 8th episode like a couple of days ago, so I filmed in advance. What do you think about that? Like preparing for filming. Like this is a personal project. I am not looking to gain anything out of the podcast. Like this is my excuse to call people up and hang out with them. Like I just want to call cool people and
working.
talk to them. Yeah. But what do you think about that? Like preparing the content, filming in advance. Like there are some people that batch shoot like 30 videos and then they're ready for the month. And
I think because you're doing it in a way where it's quality over quantity, it's much better, because it gives you time to prepare where you're going to do it, who you're going to speak with. If you kind of rush it and do batches all in one, I think the quality would go down. And how do you measure that? Well, I think if you're there talking for 8 hours straight, you might get slightly burnt out or slightly tired, or you might think you're going in circles. And even if you're not, the psychological effect of just thinking that because it's your personal project might take away from the quality. So I think it's a good idea to do it like this and really prepare. And it also makes your guests feel even more valued as well. So I think, I like it like that. And, scheduling it where you have some prepared. Let's say you're busy for the next 6 months or you have a trip in America, then it's good to have some in the background where you're keeping a monthly cadence, for example.
Yeah. Like I always want to dedicate a day just to this one podcast, and we can sit down. We can even grab lunch later. We can grab a coffee or something. But what do you think about preparing content like for social media, like short form content, talking head videos and stuff like that?
Oh, it definitely needs to be prepared. Especially if you're managing someone, or is it for yourself? Let's say.
Let's say for myself. I think I'm mostly going to ask about the personal brands.
Okay, I think it's almost essential, to be honest, because as much as it's a personal brand, it's the discipline of yourself that's linked to the brand. And I think if you're an undisciplined person and you're running a personal brand, that will show through the consistency of your posting, and that's just inevitable. But that's not an excuse to just rush it all, batch content, and just not have good quality. I think having something like a Monday.com where it's for yourself, it doesn't need to be presentable. It can be, doesn't matter. If it works with you and it's aesthetically pleasing and that helps you and motivates you, fantastic. But it doesn't need to be. So I would have certain tabs like when is it going to be posted, what's the caption going to be, prepare it all so that it doesn't stress you out. There's some people who think, I need to post this week. They leave it to the last minute and they won't post it on the right day and the right time, for example. And then they think, okay, I missed it on Friday. It's Saturday now. Let me wait until the next one. And you never know. You might have some clients waiting for the content to be posted. You might have people waiting for that, weekly post. And even if you're taking out the people side, the algorithm likes it. I'm going to keep talking about the algorithm, but when you're posting on a normal schedule, it picks up because if, for example, 100 people around 6 p.m. liked it and on Friday, and you post again at that same time, the likelihood of them already recommending you on a previous post is very high, about half an hour before, which is insane. I don't know when they introduced that, but it's definitely successful for when you post because then it pushes it out really quickly. If a certain percentage of the followers like it, for context by the way, if when you post, it goes to the top 10% most loyal followers. People who liked, comment, save, share, and add to story, which is rarer, but adding to story and now reposting the content, it shows it to them. If 1 to 3% of those followers engage in those ways, then it promotes it to the next 10%. Same again, 1 to 3%, then the next 20%, and then about double, so about 2 to 6% to 7%, it then goes to the explore page. And the explore page is listed as something different technically now, but the search page where you press the search magnifying glass and then it comes up. So that's kind of how it works on that stage. And when you post on the exact time every single day or every single week, the likelihood of getting to that next 10% is so much higher. So that's kind of that in a nutshell.
How much content should a person post?
That is a very good question. It really depends on your niche. So yeah, that's a good one. If what you're doing requires tons and tons of time, let's say it's editing and you're an animator, then getting content out daily that's super high quality is not feasible. There are some YouTubers who purely design and they post once a month, but that one video will get so many views it will account for 60 days of one day posting at 20% of his kind of effort.
Yeah. I think, sorry to interrupt, a really good example of that is Mark Rober. I don't know if
yes.
you know about him.
Yeah,
he's
scientist.
Like a scientist and he does one video a month for I don't know how many years he's been doing YouTube, but he does one video a month because his experiments take so much time. So
much preparation, so much. They need approval for half of his videos because they're so crazy sometimes.
Yeah. Actually, don't know the name of the YouTuber, but somebody was telling me that there's a YouTuber that I don't know, he posts a video every 5, 6 months, 10 months. He's posts so rarely, but when he announces he's going to post, people prepare for that. It's going they're going to a movie theater to see a new movie. They've been waiting for that for years. There's so much hype about that.
Insane. What content does he do?
I'm not even sure because I know I'll try to find it because I know what friends told me about him and I'll try to find YouTube.
Text him and then he'll find it.
Yeah, I'll try to find it. I'm not even sure what niche, but it was just crazy to me. He posts twice a year or something like that, and he's huge on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean that's a good example of less is more. And my dad always says that to me. Oh my gosh, less is more, and it's true. Let's say your theme page though, you're just starting off or you're clipping. There's a whole movement for clippers at the moment where they're chopping up people's podcasts and they're posting it with permission, without permission. They should always do it with. But that when you're clipping is about the volume. It's purely about the volume. Sometimes it's not even as much about the quality because if you're the first to clip, let's say a new podcast comes out and it's what's the main guy's name?
Chris Williamson.
No, or Chris Williamson, yeah, but in America. Something Joe.
Oh, Joe Rogan.
Yeah, Joe Rogan. How have I forgotten the name of that?
Yeah, how did they come up with Chris before Joe Rogan? Yeah, that's
true. With Joe Rogan, whenever his 2-hour podcast comes out, or 1 hour and a half, they're clipped up instantly, every single section of it, 30 seconds, and it's just posted. And that hits, even if, let's say, 1 in every 10 video gets 1 million views and the rest get 10,000, it's worth the volume in that. So when you're doing collaborations with them, because they're hiring clippers now, by the way, it's not just, people are stealing the content. No, it's mostly orchestrated now, which is good.
Wait, so there's like an agency that just does clipping, like massively?
Loads. There's, and WAP as well. They're like launched this feature, I'm pretty sure, where creators can sign up and they offer a payout reward per 1,000 views that are real, and it just auto pays it. They review it at the end of the month and it just auto pays. And
can I hire them to clip my podcast?
You can, for sure.
Like even in Serbian?
I'm sure there'll be some Serbian equivalents. If you look at, other people who do podcasts, they probably have some scheme there, and you can probably offer a scheme that's similar. So that's probably possible, yeah. But yeah, in that occasion, volume is everything, and it's a bit different from the Joe Rogan, from the Mark Rober side, but it works in a different way. So, but as a personal brand, in the middle of it now, it really depends on your audience. If your audience is enjoying the content, such as you're reviewing cars, if you're reviewing cars daily, people want to see that, because if they're reviewing cars daily, their Instagram page is going to be full of cars. If they like you as a person now, outside the algorithm, what you mentioned, if they like you as a person, they're going to value you reviewing the cars over the thousands that they see daily on the Instagram, or hundreds more realistically. So I think everything in combination to what fits your audience, what fits you personally. If you're running a job at the same time, maybe you can't do 5 a day of different cars, 3 a day. You can't organize the collaborations, but once every 2 days is good. It's strong. Ideally once a day, if it's something like that, where you can there's so many cars being launched. There's so many different, things in Japan, cars in Japan that's so unique. There's so many, even 20 of 20 cars. There's thousands of 20 of 20, cars that you can review. So in that occasion, daily is great, but once every 2-3 days is fine as well.
You just said a minute ago, that people are maybe going to swipe through their Instagram, and there's going to be every post is going to be about cars, but they want you reviewing the cars. With the rise of AI content and everything is going to be more and more generic. Do you think? How do you think creatives are going to survive that? Does the personal touch, does the personal branding separate the creators from AI, or do you think AI will, in a couple of years, couple of months, maybe 10 or 10 years, I don't know, will AI be able to replicate the authenticity that the creators have?
I think to some extent that's a fantastic point, by the way. Really good to be thinking, so far ahead on that. And we're seeing AI grow so rapidly that it's almost uncontrollable. In my opinion, there'll be new social media apps purely for AI, and there'll be maybe a secondary one that's purely not AI, and then some software that's developed by someone very smart who has some amazing detector of that. And then we'll probably see the older demographic move over to there. They'll market it as a security concern as well, by saying, you're seeing things online, these things aren't true. And the news can get behind that, which is a very easy story, free content, and it's true. It grabs onto the emotion. So I think a new social media will come out there. In terms of people resonating, now that's an interesting one. Now, no, it's very clear to the younger generation, not to the older generation, that AI content's AI. Then again, when you speak to the older generation who can't tell if it's AI or not, the content's so unrealistic to get the views at this moment that they will then understand these things are not, real when educated. But I think it will actually reverse in itself. And this is kind of going against the trend, I think, of what I'm about to say, is AI now, for example, if you go to a court, video evidence is very highly rated, because really highly kind of regarded there, because you can see it. It's happened. It's not just word. It's not just testimony. Obviously, witness testimony is important as well, but we saw the shift to video and photo evidence. There's going to be a stage of AI where it develops so quick that even video itself can be challenged, We even saw in the Johnny Depp case that I forgot the lady's name, but they looked into the metadata of the photos of some of the bruises and stuff, and the metadata was changed, which indicates that it's been edited, and that was thrown out of the evidence. So when we see videos coming up in the future, they're all going to have to be challenged. And I think what the trend thing that I just mentioned, I'm going to go against it, is that we'll start to revert back to witness testimony versus video, and it will be valued more than video in the future because everything is just so hard to differentiate. And it's so hard for us now. Imagine what the governments have.
That's just what I wanted to say. Like, if they released like AIs like ChatGPT and Sora and Nano Banana to us to play with
Yes.
for free, and they're losing money on that, like imagine what they have
With the government contracts.
Yeah, like what they have stashed up somewhere there.
I mean, yeah, it's incredible.
And then, do you think we can actually trust the news on social media? We can trust the propaganda. How do you know how do you know who to trust and who to not trust? How do you know how to inform yourself today? And even with now realizing how much how advanced AI is that's publicly available, and then realizing what they have like 10, 20 years ago, like can we even trust that?
Yeah, another fantastic question. Like you're bringing some really good ones already. I think, yeah, that's interesting.
When's going to be the point when I put out a podcast and people are just like, yeah, that's AI? Because you can make AI podcasts right now. I'm just not sure about the video length, but with the talking and everything, like there's AIs that you can feed like a couple of books in there, and you choose what voice you want the speaker to have, how many speakers, and it generates like you want hour and 15 minutes podcast. Here you go, generating.
Wow, I think that's just given me an idea with live streaming. I think live streaming may take off even more because it's harder to live stream AI and interact with the followers and stuff. So I think live streaming, we've seen the rise in Kick and Rumble. Maybe that's linked, maybe it's not, but I think we would see massive increases in that because that's how you would differentiate very easily if someone's actually real or not. When it gets to a stage of, is this person, this influencer actually real? Obviously, there will be fact checkers and those automated ones, but they only go so far, especially if they're automated. In terms of informing yourself, now that's very very difficult because you have both sides saying the other side's wrong. You have both sides saying the other side's incorrect, not true. So where do you get your sources from? And I think as much as I might be one side or the other, it's very important to look at both sides. Look at what they think and why they think it. Trace it back to the source. If we can trace everything back to the source, rather than just scrolling Instagram, seeing this outlandish caption or title, research it. If it's important to you. If it's not, then you just keep scrolling.
You just brought me to a really good question regarding the going straight to the source, like actually researching stuff and actually knowing the stuff you talk about. I've heard that in China there's going to be laws that if you're an influencer and you're talking, let's say, about medicine or something, that you have to have a degree in medicine. You have to be educated. If you're talking about economics, you have to have a degree in the economics. What do you think about that? Is that going to live up in the other countries, or?
I think for medical, in other countries, I think it will be picked up by some. In the more democratic countries, I think it will take more time. However, with capitalistic societies, often they'll say, "Oh, this is super bad," but then they'll adopt it in a halfway, which is fine, which works for the population. And I think in this scenario, for medical, this is my personal view as well. For medical, I think that's good because to some extent, because then there's control and things like that. But in the macro sense, if people who are trained in medicine are teaching you about medicine, fantastic. However, on economics, most of the economic kind of standards that we use today are based in theory. Obviously, there's practicality to it. We see them in world economies. We see them in everything, in small businesses, large businesses, things like that. But there are some things that are theoretical. And I think with the change that's coming with AI, with people, with the damaged prefrontal cortex is on just scrolling all day and things like that, and the attention span, some economic theories, I don't know which one specifically, might not be as strong. And if economists are in union training that this is the best way, I don't know, Keynesian economics, this is the best way, full stop. If you move in one direction only and there's no free speech for, other ideas, you can see collapses of countries and governments, of societies, based on small errors that were just not seen. That whereas if it's free and open, people can completely destroy your economic theory, whether they're right or wrong. You might have an idea that comes from it. You might see, okay, well, if we keep cutting rates in America and we're trying to keep inflation as low as possible, how are the bank balances doing in terms of actual, JP Morgan, Chase, how are their reserves doing? I saw an article today on banks having lower cash reserve, and I looked at the S&P 500 and Nasdaq, and it started pricing that in immediately. So I was like, that's interesting. If it was just purely specialists coming out and saying these things, it might not have even been looked at, because why would a private company want to announce that it's a public company has lower cash reserves just when they're not even reporting their quarterly earnings? So I think in some contexts, like medicine, it can be advantageous somewhat or mostly. There needs to be some free speech in medicine as well, because there's different research, there's different people and bodies and reactions. But as a whole, if you have medical specialists teaching on medicine, fantastic. If you have economists on economy, great. But I don't think it should be limited on the economy side. On the other side,
just to interrupt
sorry,
you, with all the knowledge we have now, on the tip of our fingers on internet, even you and me, we didn't go to college, we didn't study anything. We started working when we were young, and all of our knowledge came from the internet and from practical things. Where do you think is the line on for what niches do you need to go to college, and what niches you can just do on your own, and what is the benefit of college?
I think the main purpose of college that people don't kind of look at straight away is the discipline building side. College is fantastic for showing up on time, giving you assignments, putting the work in when someone who has higher authority tells you to. Those things are good. But when it comes to you don't know what to do in life and you use college as an excuse to kind of give yourself more time, and often in university, you're putting yourself in more debt and you're continually not knowing what to do, I think that can be a dangerous spiral where you become lackluster in the reason why you're there, which is to show up on time, to improve your skills, improve your knowledge. But in some professions, it's not as necessary. For example, I dropped out of university in business management because I was in the actual lecture learning about how you calculate profit, whilst I was running a social media company on the side. And it was like, if this professor was really successful in business, in the theory, then arguably they might not be teaching. That's not a blanket statement. The person who one of the people who inspired me was this guy called Mr. Ray. His name was Matt Ray, but we said Mr. Ray in school. And he was a teacher.
Listening, just something bothering me.
And he called his brand Travel Teacher, because in the summer holidays, he would go and take people out to amazing countries in Africa and give people the experience, but also on the side he was a teacher, where he knows that income's coming in, because the way teachers are paid, even on summer holidays, they're paid for that as well. So he could do both, and that's great. But for university professors, I think for business management, it's not as key to learn some of the very parliamentary basic things. On the other hand, for specialist professions, lawyers, doctors, and with that lawyer being a judge or a solicitor, these things are required absolutely, because you need knowledge of law. You need to apply it 100%, and these are very key to society and protecting civilians and things. Whereas on the other side, again, just going to make yourself feel better that you don't know what to do, so I'm going to give myself more time. There's no practicality side to that, especially if you're just going there to party and to spend and to learn bad habits. It can be the opposite reaction. So, yeah, I think profession wise, for specialist subjects, it's essential, and it should be essential. For non-essential things like business management, or
you can
marketing,
do it without,
you can do it without.
Yeah, you said some people go to college, and I think actually most people go to college, especially in Serbia, because it's the way it should be done. Like you finish high school, then you need to go to college, and that's, I think, what my parents told me and what everybody's parents told everybody.
Yeah.
How do you think a person that's 18 years old, that's a kid, you finish high school as an 18-year-old, you don't know what you're going to do with your life. How does that person actually decide if they want to go to college, which college they want to go? Do they want to start something on their own, or how do you make a decision at that young of an age?
Good question. I think you need to look into your personal interests. If you love buildings, for example, then look into the architecture courses. See, is this going to provide me value? Am I going to upskill myself and be able to apply that somewhere? Because it's one thing to gain skills in something that's non-applicable. That's just for yourself. That's fine. Those can be hobbies. But for life and for work, I think if it's specialized. But as you say, most people are going not knowing what to do. So I would say to that 18-year-old, reflect on your personal beliefs and your interests, what you enjoy, and then look at online, industry-wide, what those things can do for you in an almost selfish way, because it is your life and you need to learn, where to go and what to do. So look into your interests, see how you can apply that, and don't just think college is going to give me that 100%. Look at the downsides of going as well, because it's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort, it's years of your life, which is fine because you are gaining some knowledge. But if you can learn that much quicker, if you can apply that 10 times quicker with opening your own company, if it's something that's non-specialized, like you're not becoming a judge, then you can accelerate that kind of few years into a few months even, if you're really dedicated, if you're really enjoying it, if you're really following your passions in a way. So that's what I would say for people looking at going to college. Just double check, read yourself. What do you like? What are your passions? Can you apply that? And is that the quickest way going through college to actually gain those skills necessary to, go where you want to go in life?
Yeah. What do you think about college as a networking tool?
It's good for building friends, I think. But I think the average person who goes and is there just purely to build friends and network, you're often just clubbing, partying, spending money that you shouldn't be spending, and not saving properly or investing, and you can be damaging your body in a way. And in the long run, that's not beneficial. However, you can gain one or two really good friends from there. That's good. That's arguably the best part of college for non-specialized subjects, in my opinion, because relationships is everything. Obviously, I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I try and follow Christ as much as I can, and love is the foundation. And I think from that, relationships can build that for sure, and you can express your love to your friends, family. It even says a friend can stick closer than a brother in some circumstances. As a Bible verse, and that is very valuable. That's almost, you could argue, priceless, and you can't buy that. So for those things, great. For applicable sort of non-specialized subjects, not essential.
I get it. Now going back to networking and actually social media and how you're not that public, you mentioned that your social media is a good networking tool. Who's the most important, most famous person you've met through social media or connected to?
That's a good question.
Was it someone in the business world or someone that's just a famous person? An influencer or something?
Met in person or spoken to?
Connected with.
Connected with. That's a good question. I'd have to look at my phone. I've met some US directors who filmed some big filmed. There was one, actually a friend, this is kind of through social media, called Connor Cratchler. His father is a director, and he directed like Venom and a couple of the Marvel films, and I was going to be an extra as one of the dead people in the film. I was going to be, but unfortunately, at the time there was an actors' strike that lasted for a really long time in Hollywood, and I didn't get to go in the end. But that was kind of indirectly from social media, from staying in contact with him, and speaking often, calling, da da da. But from the business world, like exclusively business, I think it's difficult. I might have to get back to you and think about that. I know I've sent like some guys to like Ty Lopez's house for sales events and things, but I didn't really speak with him for that long, and I wasn't in person. So that's maybe Ty Lopez is up there. There's one that's technically NDA'd still, but might meet a president of a country soon in South America from purely social media. So that would be a very interesting one. And I'll definitely send you a picture, or I'll actually video call you, because we're going to be with the cabinet and we're advising their cabinet to on how to grow in tourism. So that will definitely be number one if that goes ahead. Everything's signed, everything's done, and we're just trying to get a time because the security and the detailing and background checks is thorough, as it should be. But I would probably say him. But it's annoying because I can't say who.
No, it's okay. President of a country sounds big,
good
big
enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anyone else? I don't know. A lot of the rich people from social media that I know are very small accounts. They have like 200 followers, but I see there's 50 of my mutual contacts following. They must be someone relatively important, and whether they're in UAE government or whatever it may be. So yeah, it's a difficult one to put a name on that everyone might recognize. Yeah.
I remember you talking to me like when a country like how do you say this, like a department of a country like for tourism contacted you about doing social media and helping them grow.
Yeah.
How does that feel? Like that was even, I don't know how much time ago, but you're even younger than me. You're 22, and you get contacted by a department of a country to help them do something. Like, how does that feel?
Yeah, that was crazy. Her name was Lucine Gevgorgian, I think the surname is, and very Armenian name, as you can see. And I think Lucine, or Luce means like light, and Lucine I think is moon in Armenian, I think. And yeah, it felt great because she's the government of tourism for Armenia. And when she reached out, I was like, okay, this is serious now. How can I actually provide value for the country? And there's so many things that people don't know about Armenia.
Just a quick question. Did you first think it was a scam?
I didn't, only because when I saw the email signature, it was loaded. It was huge. And I was like, no way. And I looked at the websites and the links and who she is, and LinkedIn connected, everything's connected. And I thought, that's interesting. But yeah, it didn't go to my spam as well. And I don't give that email to many people anyway. But I think she found it through my LinkedIn, looked at a post or something, and then connected through there, and then found my email and sent me one. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. This is big. And then I went to Armenia and met her in person. We sat in a cafe. I was very nervous, to be honest. I even put on like a 3-piece suit. I was like ready to speak to her. And she comes and she looks amazing, like very well dressed. And everyone in the restaurant knew her because that's where she goes like every day for lunch. But she was very nice. It was like she tried to not create any pressure. She spoke about what the country needs, what we're looking to do, and asked me like, what ideas do I have, in anything for the country. And there was a lot about emphasizing the culture more and filming more of the churches, promoting it in leaflets, in airlines and things like that. But one of the things I recommended was an actual tax change to the constitution. And it was really funny because she just whipped this comment out. She's like, I recommended what Georgia's doing, which is a 1% tax for influencers, I think below $85,000 or something like that. And she's like, oh yeah, I'll bring that up to the president today. I was like, what? So I was like, yes. I don't know if that actually went into law or whatever, but yeah, that was interesting, and it felt great because it's from Armenia. It's not just a random country. I mean, great if another country kind of reaches out anyway, but that special side of Armenia reaching out, and that's where our heritage is from. Very, very powerful, I think.
Yeah. What do you think about like basically kids? Like we are 22, 23 years old, but we're basically still kids. We're growing up. Like,
True.
What do you think about us being able to do stuff like that? like 10, 20 years ago, some kid like us couldn't build a firm, couldn't start a career. We would probably end up, if it was 20 years ago, we would probably end up working as a helper to someone and just putting on experience until we got a bigger position and then even a bigger one. And like our parents, my mom and dad basically work at the same place for like 25, 30 years or something like that, just hoping for a better position. And then here we are, that we can just jump around from country to country, and we can have clients from the other side of the world, and we can do, like, you travel the world like 10 times as much as I did. Like, that's insane. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's different times, and I think it's unbelievable. Like to our parents as well. I went to, I think, 25 countries in a year, and they were just like I can't keep track. Like, are you sure like you can afford it and stuff? Like, you're not just spending all your money? And I was like it's fine, but this is like the new world now. It's the social media world, and often the flights or the hotels are covered anyway, or the client's paying, or the actual hotel itself's paying, and yeah, it's very different. It's very different to them, and it's hard to understand, which I understand, because you're right. You know, they work in one company, 2 maximum often, and they'll work their way up, you know, to director if they're super intelligent, CEO, CFO, CMO. So it's very different. What do I think about it? I think in a beautiful way, the simple life is very modest. I like that in a way, because you're showing your loyalty to a company. You're really feeling like you're part of the family, the team. But often there needs to be a distinction between team and work and family. Often in corporate spaces, and this is one of the reasons why I didn't want to, you know, move into that, is you're doing 8 to 12 hours on average. Let's say you're doing 8 to 9, working in offices with team members. Some people you might not like, some people you will like. It's a big toll on your life, especially if you have children. I don't know how, you know, mothers do it and single mothers do it. That's incredible to me. But I think more time with the family and with people whom you love is much more important. And we often see people prioritizing the work or the money because of greed, because they want a new car, they want whatever, more than relationships. And it always boils down to relationships again. You know, when do you see someone on their deathbed and they're thinking, oh, I wish I got to that next position in the company. I wish I sold the shares earlier or bought more. No one's thinking that. You're thinking, who's around the table? Who can I love? Which memories can I bring up? That's, you know, you're gonna laugh about, you're gonna enjoy on your deathbed. It's not about, you know, what you did in the company.
Yeah. How much do you think? Like, I'm going to say this badly, but how much do you think social media has poisoned the youth? Like, poisoned the mind? I don't know how else to say it. ASMR pause.
I think poison the mind, or or what do you mean? Like
in general, like
in general,
our generation, because I kind of feel like if I look at how life looked 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, like I feel like it used to be a lot simpler, and I think people are getting too greedy, and I don't know. I see our generation as a bunch of people just not having discipline at all.
Yeah, I agree totally. It's very weak now. I think the attention span is the craziest one, and the kind of release of dopamine when you're scrolling, which we all succumb to, of course. But years and years of stacking that is going to be very damaging mentally. You already see in small children, people and parents understandably giving the phones to them or the iPads to give them more time, whether they're cooking, whether they're taking a call, whatever it may be. But that personal touch that you need with the children teaches them. And by giving the iPad or the phone and they're watching things, there's another risk to that totally of what they're actually going to be exposed to. Obviously, things like YouTube Kids, you know, accounts for that, and, you know, other parental controls. But on a macro sense, these things are very damaging to children, to us even. Often, your time management will be poorer because you're losing track of time, or you're not enjoying the present. Often you see and I deal with this a lot as well. When I'm in conversation, it's hard to not look at your phone with the amount of notifications that they're giving you, whether that's X, Instagram, games, whatever it may be. It's very hard to just disregard that when everything's so connected. But it's very important to, because if you're it's the same philosophy with working. If you're working, you work hard. If you're with your family or friends, you spend time with them, you give them your attention, rather than, and my dad was telling me, I remember like when I was like 14, 15, I used to have like a small TV in my room. I used to watch it, and I used to like do something on, I think it was a Kindle Fire at the time, and my dad come in and get angry, and I'd be like, oh, that's strange. Like, but not like angry, but he'd be like, oh, what are you doing? And he said, you might think that you're enjoying half of them, some on the game on the Kindle Fire and half the TV. But he was like, if you actually reflect on it, what are you watching? And I had to try and, tell him what happened. And I kind of was like, I don't really know. I just know the main plot. And he's like, okay, what are you doing on the game? And it was like, no, I haven't really noticed like the enjoyment that I've been getting from it. So his argument was basically, it's not 50%, 50% that equals 100% enjoyment. It was like, you're getting 30% from this, 30% from this, you're getting 60%, and you're, damaging your mind to think and get more dopamine. So when I'm not doing two things, I'm bored, even though it shouldn't be like that at all. Whether you're talking to people, you just sometimes you might want to like check it, or you don't want to go to social events because you're constantly looking, at your phone and you want to stay connected online. But that's not real. It is in some sense, but it's not personal. It's not as healthy as going out for a coffee, for example, or just talking like this without the distractions. And you're much more in the mode to, connect and actually share things that are not just primal in a way.
Yeah. I just remember one thing. I saw this like TikTok maybe a year, maybe more than a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I can finally say this because I don't have a translation for this to Serbian. And whenever I try to tell this to somebody in Serbia, like I don't know how to tell it. And then I revert back to English.
Okay.
But I'm not going to talk about the whole video. Basically what the guy said, it was like a 2-3 minute video. What the guy said is they, with phones and computers and everything, they sold us convenience and took our boredom, where boredom is kind of the place where creativity gets born. And out of boredom, you do so many things, new things, and try out stuff and be creative and stuff like that.
So true.
And it was just the way he said it, they sold us convenience and they took our boredom. Like when's the last time you actually remember laying in your bed, looking at the ceiling and just not doing anything, nothing being on your mind?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And that makes me reflect on I remember being bored when my parents would not let me on my phone, for example. And because I'm bored, I would then spend more time with my brother or my older sister or my older brother. And they'd be like, okay, do you want to go play football? And it's like, sure. But if I had, my hour a day, I'd be like, oh, you know what? I just want to do this. And it's like, well, you're missing out on so many team building skills. You're, developing a relationship with your own family and stuff like that. And that's a really good point because, when was the last? That's a good question. When was the last time we were bored?
I generally don't remember last time I felt bored. Maybe because I work a lot, so I'm not that bored. And
hopefully not now as well.
Yeah, but I don't know, like that feeling I had as a kid, like laying on the bed and looking at the ceiling, and then you go out and fetch your friends, and then you're sitting on a bench like next to a football field without the ball, like the three of you waiting for a fourth friend, and then you're bored, but you're bored together, like.
Exactly. There's something special in that for sure. Yeah, I think that's a good reminder to.
How do you think that affects people, like all the convenience and like all the quick, cheap dopamine that you get? How do you think that affects people, that affects relationships, that affects people falling in love? Like, and I'm really interested in your take on all of this because you're a Christian. Like, how do I say this? You're really religious. And you're a really good Christian. I don't know a better way of saying it. Sorry.
It's fine. I think it's very damaging to relationships. I mean, it can if you're doing it together. I know in Asian culture, especially Korea, they play games together in that sense. At least when they're doing it together. Like, that's why they're very good at mobile games because all of them are multiplayer, because they do it for the market and they all play together, all in a circle. But even that is damaging, but that's another thing. But at least there's a community there. At least there's friends, there's friendships there. But what happens if you take the game out? What happens if you take the phone? Is there the same connection? I'm not sure. I'm not from that culture. But outside of that, on average, and to your other point earlier about people becoming weaker, totally. The amount of comfort that we've gained from that, and not only the world developing more and things which are great. Like for example, I'm not saying we should have cold showers all the time, like just for the sake of not having it. No, like I'm not really for that. But I mean, there are health benefits and stuff. But I don't take them. I think it's damaging overall. Not connecting, and the attention span decreasing on average every year by a second or so is insanely damaging for society. Yeah, completely. And then on the Christian side, what was the point you mentioned about that again?
No, just out of your perspective, like just because you're a Christian, I felt like you're going to have a unique take on this.
I think, it probably takes us away from Christ as well as a whole in terms of distraction. I heard someone say, it's not a direct Bible verse, but it says, when the devil wants to get to you, he makes you busy. And I was like, okay, well, that doesn't really make sense to me. How's that right? And the point was, when we're bored, we can reflect on things, whether you believe in God or not, you're going to reflect on things. And if you then we believe as Christians, we have a personal relationship with Jesus and a personal relationship with Father in heaven. If I'm always busy, which the devil would love, I'm not developing that relationship. I'm not giving my attention and love to God, the person who created me. And it's easier to be busy there because I don't see him in the physical sense like my father, for example. But I feel is a spiritual connection. I think, I've trusted him in everything, even in business. I don't know if I've told you this story, but the way I kind of started was when I was at the supermarket. For context, I was at the supermarket for a few years whilst I was trying to grow social media. And there was this one moment where God, I felt, revealed himself to me. And it's kind of a weird story because at the time, it's not crazy, but I was with this girl for 4 years. And out of nowhere, she went to university and she said, right, it's over. And I was like, oh, why? And she couldn't really put a reason on it. So that made me very upset at the time. And for the next 3 days specifically, I remember being super upset. And I finally, on the third day or the fourth, I closed my eyes and I was like, Lord, I don't want to be like this for the next week. I don't want to be like very sad for the next 2 weeks. Like, Lord, help me here and reveal yourself to me, that you're going to look after me, you're going to comfort me, you're going to help. And specifically, I asked, Lord, develop my business. Let me leave the supermarket. Let me take my mind off things. Let me travel the world. Not in those exact words, I'm paraphrasing, but along those lines. And Lord, bless my business. I said that. And I remember going on Instagram, and at the time, you would have, it would be a grey bar on the request bar. Now it's like blue, but at the time it had 0 requests. And I felt God say to me, look at your Instagram. And I was thinking, no way is God telling me that mid-prayer, mid being upset about the situation. No way. So I thought, I'll just do it just for the sake of doing it. I look and there's no request. I'm like, well, thanks God. Like, what is it? And I felt literally, not in an audible way like we're speaking now, but I felt in my head, refresh it. And then after looking and seeing none, I was like, I'm not refreshing that. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to lose anything. 1 second. I refresh. And it's this guy called Daniel Lannon. And I'll send a clip of this to him afterwards. I don't know if he knows the story. But he sends a message saying, let's do business. And I was like, no way. And to this day, most of my clients, like 85 to 90%, if not more, has come from him, was him directly, indirectly, a friend introduced a friend and a client, from him specifically. And that's how I think I left, Morrison's at the time. And, I attribute that to God, but thankfully he messaged on the exact time. But yeah, I remember refreshing and seeing like 20 seconds ago or 1 second ago, whatever it was at the time, when you refreshed on Instagram, it said like 27, 22, 24, whatever the seconds was. And I clicked it. I was like, no way. And yeah, the proof of that, I think, not just being a coincidence, is that most of the business I've done has come from him, or someone directly connected to him, a friend of a friend, a client, a different business who's heard about me from him. And like the other day I was thinking, oh, where did I find this guy? And I traced it back to him, and oh, of course, back to Daniel or Danny. And we traveled to some place. I met him in Amsterdam. He's from America. Super talented guy, very, very good marketer. If you ever need advice in marketing, like, I will look like a baby compared to him in terms of, knowledge. He's incredible. And we did a lot of interesting things together. And yeah, that's kind of my little story on God revealing himself, I think. And here I am, 4 years later, and I've left the supermarket. I think I'm doing,
when you look at it, that's a short period of time.
Yeah, it is. God moves quick, I think. Sometimes slow in other things, but that's part of the test, I think, as well. But back to the original point of, concentrating and boredom. I think if the devil makes you busy, you're not gonna be speaking to him. You're not gonna be praying. You're not gonna be, asking God for things. You're not going to be thanking God for things. It's not.
You're going to be distancing yourself.
Yeah, distancing yourself, and unintentionally sometimes. But that's where the saying comes from. If the devil wants to get you, he'll make you busy. Yeah.
Sorry. I just want to get back to 2 episodes ago, when I was with Nicola. I actually mentioned at one moment we were kind of talking about religion. I was like, when back then you didn't agree to do the podcast. I was still hunting you, and
hunting.
I was talking to him, and I was like, there's this guy that I know, and I'm trying to get him on the podcast. And we had when I told you that I wasn't Christian. I don't believe in God, but I realized that I share a lot of values, like with a lot of Christian people and everything, and the whole religion. And then we actually you kind of started talking about the difference between religion and spirituality. I think that was the correct words in English. And I just want you to tell it for the people, because I was so amazed at how nicely you put it, and how it kind of made me think about everything, and like really put a nice perspective on it.
Hopefully I'll try and explain it in a similar way, but I think the two main distinctions is religion versus faith. And I think religion tells you to follow the exact rules, go to church on Sunday, give 10% of your income, tithing, many like different rules with, I'm saying many different rules, but I'm trying to think of loads of rules. But like, for example, even, it's going to sound quite controversial, but kissing the icons or venerating them, which is fine. I'm not against that at all. I'm not against those things, but these are not essential to salvation. These are the add-ons. They're, well, not necessarily add-ons, but these are ways of expressing yourself to God. But often with religion, with going to church every week as a routine, by not, sowing the seed with God, you're just doing a pattern, and there's no relationship. If you have no relationship with God, no faith with God, and you're just following the words in the Bible, or you're just reading it and not following it in actual, practice, you can say you're a Christian, but Christ himself wasn't a Christian. He was a Jew. So, are you really following Christ? Because being a Christian is following Christ. It's following the God in the flesh, who the ultimate sacrifice was bringing himself down in human form to be tempted like us, but he didn't sin, and we end up killing him as the only sinless man. And by saying, I'm a Christian, but not following the actual word of God and trusting in him and developing your relationship with him, how can you say you're actually a Christian? You might be, by religious definition, a Christian in terms of you follow the Bible, but that's also arguably not what an actual Christian is. I think faith provides many more benefits, and it's not about benefits, but it comes with actually trusting God, not being stressed all the time, giving your stresses to him, like it says in Psalms. And there's one very scary verse that I think if Christians think, I'm just making this up, there's a very scary verse from Matthew. I think it's Matthew 4:4, but I'm sure they can find it. It says, the context, by the way, I think, is when people go up for Judgment Day when they die, for example, and I think it was a Pharisee, which at the time was a religious leader who knew the books off by heart. The Torah, for example, they knew every word. And they said, Lord Jesus, I knew you. I prayed in your name. I healed in your name. I gave prophecies in your name. So I almost like told the future sort of thing, but not really. I healed in your name. And Jesus responds, for I did not know you. I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice unlawfulness. And it's like, wait, what? Well, am I safe then? Someone who knows the book, says they follow God. They even did, miracles in his name. And then Jesus is saying, depart from me, I never knew you. That emphasizes that it's not about works. It's not about every time I go in, I have to kiss the icon. Those things are fine for venerating. That's fully okay. But these are not the main milestones and key things to actually knowing Christ. If you're going every week on Sunday, that doesn't equal salvation. Definitely not. It's about knowing God, knowing Jesus. Who is he? Do I have a personal relationship with him? Can I resonate? Can I speak to him? Do I actually know him? And it says the only way to the Father is through me. That was Jesus speaking. We have the historical record of that as well. It's not just me saying that. And I think that's the important thing. Religion, can be good for keeping community. But if you look at religion as a whole, religion's committed many atrocities. You look at the church and the Crusades, for example. I know that can be argued because of the Islamic conquest and stuff, but I think a better kind of example would be medieval England, where the church was used as a powerhouse to control the money, to control the peasants, control the king even, and that's religion, the church itself. But if you actually look at the church and say, are you actually following Christ? Are you actually following what the Bible says exactly? There's no faith in it. It's just rules, regulations, power, and control. And the same can be made for other religions as well, with Islam, for example, with the religion and the conquering of different nations. I know in some verses it says these things are not good, and others it says it is. But religion can be used as a kind of scapegoat for the atrocities that are committed, and say, oh yeah, but I'm this, but do you actually follow the word? So that's what I would say in a more detailed way. I don't know if I explained it any worse or better than the first time, but yeah, those are the two distinctions. One's actually knowing someone and developing a relationship with him, i.e. God, Jesus, and the other one's following a book that you're just saying, I'm going to follow the rules and regulations that it says exactly, even though some of them are out of context. I'm going to give for example, tithing. It says you give 10% of your income to the church. At the time this came about, don't quote me if I'm wrong, or do quote me if I'm wrong, I think it was Daniel or someone, where the king sent someone off to battle, and because of this victory, and he shared it with the king, he gave a certain percentage of the loot, of the plunder of the other villages or city to the king as an honor of, our soldiers have won your war. And that's where the tithe came from. And we look and it says 10%. But when we look back in actual history as to what the tithe was, it was actually closer to 30 to 40%. So if we want to be religious about it, theoretically we should be giving that, because it says give 10%. But at the end of the day, I don't think you should even give any by mandatory. It's said, there's one example when the widow gives her last coin, and then the rich man gives tons of gold coins. And it says, in the eyes of the Lord, the widow who gave everything, even though it's one coin, that is worth more than the rich man who gave half, or whatever the percentage is. So I think it's about, again, the faith, not just following strict guidelines. There are some that I think should follow. Definitely, 10 Commandments are key. Honor your mother and father, which is very difficult sometimes, but for some people. But I think that ultimately honoring doesn't mean follow everything they say and do 100%, but honoring them in their name and protecting it and respecting it. I think these are the key things, and there's many other that are non-negotiable in the Bible. Like how family should be structured and marriage and things like that.
Yeah. How do you think that being a Christian, like I see you as maybe of all the people I know, like the one that is most like truly Christian, and that's why I brought religion up and everything. How do you think that affected your business? Do you think you've come across some? I don't like saying restrictions, but I don't know. I don't have another word in business.
Definitely. I remember when OnlyFans management was coming up, and I know Andrew Tate's the Tates kind of spearheaded this, but when they started doing content on it, I wasn't caring about the content. I was thinking, oh my gosh, this must be making crazy money, rather than actually buying into the whole identity. And I had some guys from the UK. They offered to, start a company together. And I knew they were way ahead of me in business. They were super intelligent as well. And I prayed, and I was like, no, this is not a good thing. Like the OnlyFans side, the management side of it, any of it is very damaging to the soul. It's very sad, I think, to God see his daughters dressing in these ways, selling their bodies to. It's like modern day prostitution, to be frank, and in some way. And even now, I'm still in contact with these people. I'm not going to be judgment. I don't do business with them, but I still we actually have debates all the time. But he sends me pictures that he's making, like, revenue wise 130k a month, 40k in profit some months, 60k in others. He was complaining 2 weeks ago, saying, oh, revenue's down this month, I don't know what to do. And it was like 90k a month. And I was like, okay, not the biggest deal, but the reward, I think, of not going into these things is, it can be your soul in the whole sense of it, but in the actual earthly way, it's not being stressed about, how you're making these women feel. It's not taking on the burdens of, other men and texting them all day and trying to get the most money out of it. And I know his mind is quite warped from these things. Although he's earning greatly, there are some repercussions to that. And that's why God warns her to run from sexual immorality. He actually says flee from it. And I think there have been restrictions on that side, in terms of I could have opened many more businesses with other people for doing that, and maybe increased revenues, profits even more. Who knows? But end of the day, I think, if it's a net negative for society, if it's a net negative for God's kingdom, I think stay away from it, and God will reward you in other ways. Maybe not financially, but in spiritually, in relationships, for example. A lot of these OnlyFans managers, they find it really difficult to find a partner, because they are so used to, in a way, the degrading side of the business. And naturally, they find it hard to trust women because of that. And and even trust themselves sometimes. They just don't know where to start. They don't know what to do. They see it as business rather than a relationship. And to an extent, relationships is some business as well, in some way, if you get what I mean. Like, there are benefits for both sides, but at the end of the day, it's not about the business. It's about actual genuine love. So those are some downsides. Those are some for them. Those are some kind of downsides financially from my perspective. But I think the moral benefits outweigh the financials 10 times, 100-fold over.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I feel like the line here is being morality, moral. How would you define morality, actually?
How would I define morality? I think intrinsically, everyone, I know this is a bit controversial as well, but there is a baseline consciousness where we know the killing, where there's no motive, is fundamentally wrong. And I think these have derived from Christian Judeo values of society. You see the Western culture, and there are some rules that should be followed totally, and they come from Christ's influence. And those, I think, are good baselines for morality. If you want to be irreligious and you don't want to speak about religion in terms of Christ, whatever, fine. From a theological perspective, I think morality would come from the values of society over time, where we've understood that these things are wrong, such as killing, cheating, for example. These are our baseline wrong because we feel a moral conscience in our heart. We feel guilt. Then my question to them would be, where does the guilt come from? And I think it comes from the Holy Spirit convicting us. But outside of that guilt is a good baseline as to what's right or wrong. However, there are some extremists that actually genuinely don't feel guilt, and they're just committing crimes and atrocities because they feel, in the name of their book or whatever it may be, that it's fine. But I think deep down somewhere that they know fundamentally, outside of the desires that they'll gain from committing these things, or the rewards or the money, whatever, inside they'll feel deeply that these things are wrong. So morality, in a sense, in one sentence, I think is a hard one to define. What would you say? And I'll add my sentence onto it.
You caught me off guard.
I flipped it instantly.
Yeah. I'm not actually sure how to define it. Like, I guess, like, while growing up, while while learning about the society and everything, while growing older, you kind of like internally you get a kind of a feeling of what's right and what's wrong. Like if I see someone promoting casino to kids, like with the influencers nowadays and everything.
Sounds great. No, I'm joking.
Like, that's amazing though.
Yeah.
No, we like, I have a feeling that's wrong. I feel like even those people have a feeling that's wrong, but then they compromise their morals for money, which is a huge problem right now.
That's a good point. Well, where do you think that feeling of right and wrong comes from?
I think the foundation is how you're raised. Like, depends a lot on the parents and how you're raised. And even though I'm not a Christian, what I said, that I share a lot of moral values with a lot of Christians. My parents are both Christians and they're really religious. And I think that the way they raised me, they're always kind of putting more accent on looking what's right and what's wrong, and actually making my sister and me reflect on what happened and how it was done, and kind of made us think. And what I think a really good thing is teaching my kids, teaching young people to have critical thinking. Like, don't just say that's wrong because you're taught that's wrong. Don't say that's right because you're taught that's right. Like, think about it. So true. Think about it. Why is that wrong? Why is that right? You have to think for yourself. I think there's a saying that fully. Oh, speaking to the mic, that fully goes in line with that. And a lot of Christians say it's being born again. And being born again in the Christian sense is choosing to accept Jesus as Christ, but for yourself. Because it's all well and easy to say, well, I'm born in a Christian, household in England, and the likelihood of me being a Christian is high. I agree with that. I'm not going to, go against someone and say, that's not true. Yeah, like the likelihood of you being Christian if you're born in India is low.
Yeah. Funnily enough, because the population is so large in India, even I think it's 2% of India's Christians. That's still insane amount. That's 20 million people. If there's 1 billion, I think there's even more, 1.5 billion. So there actually theoretically might be even more chance of being Christian if you get what I mean. I understand the point. You're likely to be a Hindu or a Buddhist. So that's all correct, and I fully agree with that. But that's where that verse that I spoke to you earlier about is, for I never knew you, depart from me. We have to make that choice to actually know him, to actually believe. Do I actually believe because my parents believe, or do I actually believe because I know him? And it's very easy, to say, I believe, but do you really? And like an analogy would be, if someone took all trees from the earth, it's not possible because, in terms of we need it for the oxygen, carbon dioxide or whatever. Let's say all trees disappeared. And from now on, every single person in the world says trees never existed. I would be able to be like, well, I've seen them. I've experienced them. I know the benefits of it. I know how we're breathing and living from it. So it doesn't matter what you say and how many people say it. I'm going to choose to believe this based on the evidence that I've been given. But for someone who's just been born and their parents say, this is the right way, then they're going to believe that, and then they're not going to, accept other ideas. So the point of being born again is we must challenge our own ideas, our parents' ideas, society's ideas, other religions, and choose which one is correct, which one reaches out to me, but not from a selfish perspective. If you think from a selfish perspective, I wouldn't be a Christian. There are many things that I want to do that I'm not doing for God. And I think that's very difficult. For example, I'm a man. I'm trying to do my best to wait till marriage.
Just a second, sorry.
Go on.
Aha. Окей. Ако църкне.
Everything good? Okay. I'm waiting till marriage for sex, and I'm a man who's I'm natural. I want to do these things. So, in a way, I'm following the Bible by doing that because I believe that God, who knows me better, knows us better, who created us, even if I don't see the immediate benefit. I mean, there are actually immediate benefits with you look at the divorce rates in the UK, 60%. Look at the amount of fatherless homes. And society degrading from that perspective. But whether or not I didn't know those statistics, I would be like, I want to do these things. But God knows us better, and the fruits of not following Him, is difficult, and your life can become more hard from that. But what was the point that you? What did you ask before that I led to that?
We're talking about morality. Yeah, you got me lost here.
I can't remember.
This is the part what I like about not preparing questions in school.
Yeah, it just goes off.
The topics are just going.
Oh, I remember now about making their own choice, and that links to morality as well. I think, if you just follow things because you think you should, at some point you're going to have to challenge yourself and think, am I just following this because I've been told to? And you can only be told so long, and you can only follow things so long. If you don't truly believe it, it will wear off eventually. And at some point, I had to decide. I got myself, baptized, I think, at like 12 or 13. That's when I made a decision. Okay, I actually feel like I know God personally. I want to choose to follow, even when I don't want to, what He says, and try my best to follow. And from a morality perspective, I think morality, in my one sentence, would be putting others before yourself, even when there's no benefit. That, in a way, even if you think there is no benefit, there might be, but you should be doing it from a perspective that there isn't. If you're putting others before yourself, then I think there's honor in that. There's morality in that. You're thinking about others no matter the extent, no matter the scale. If you genuinely do that, I think that is morality. That is morality. Yeah.
We've been talking for a while right now. I just want to ask one more question,
Sure.
and I feel we're going to wrap this up. But I want to ask you to tell the people story about that watch because I love that story.
Okay, I thought that might have been coming. I was thinking in the car.
Out of the 300 listeners I have, I think I've already told that story to like 250.
Really?
Yeah, I love the story. But
Okay.
just as a form of motivation for the end of the podcast.
Yeah. So I was at the supermarket at the time, and I remember I was stacking the bananas, and there's this one story I'll quickly mention as well. When I knew I wanted to leave, was I had these gloves on, and one of the gloves had like a hole in the finger, and I was opening the bananas, and I put my finger inside the box, and the one finger with the hole in went into the moldy banana. And bear in mind, I was wearing glasses as well. I go, oh, that's disgusting. I pull a finger out, and it flicks into my eye, and I was like, right, I'm leaving. Right, I need motivation. I'm leaving. I left the supermarket then, but I went to head office for corporate, and I went into the Rolex store in Leeds, and I was like, well, I definitely can't afford this, but I'm going to go in, I'm going to register the cheapest one, and I don't know if it was cheaper, whatever. It was. And I was like, it doesn't matter. I need to be able, when they call me in 1 to 2 years, I want to be ready, in place to buy it. This is my motivation now, to go in, and I acted like I could buy £100,000 worth of watches when I first went in, because I needed that motivation, that feeling of what it's like to escape. You get what I mean? So I went in, I saw this guy called Connor. He's very kind, respectful, and was like, "Oh, come on, let's sit down." We went through the watches. I was looking at the price. I was like, "No, this is crazy for a watch. This is stupid. My dad would kill me." And I thought, right, I'm going to register for this one. And it's a Datejust 41.
How old were you at the moment?
I think I was 19. Yeah, 19. Just turned 19 because my birthday's in July. So, yeah, just turned 19. And I registered for this one. And I was like, right. I left. I felt amazing. I had the little Rolex bag with like the booklet in. And I was like, right, this is good. I'm gonna leave Morrison soon. I wanna hustle, I wanna grind so that I can be able to get this. And there's someone behind the camera as well that I want to honor in this, because this is my whole story of how I came to Serbia, Volim Serbia, with the initials MM. I don't know if you want his name said, so I'm going to say MM. He actually flew me out to Serbia at the time when he wasn't like financially, super strong like now, but he spent a good proportion of money flying me out from England to meet him whilst I was at the supermarket still, to talk business, because we knew there was some connection somewhere. We can do business, we can partner on something. And from that...
Wait, was that the moment I met you? Like the first time you came?
Yes, it was.
Really?
Yeah, from him.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I came to Serbia from that. I enjoyed it. I met his brother as well, got along really very well, and then stayed for 2 more weeks, went back to the corporate head office again. And this is another thing with relation to the watch. I moved to Leeds at the time, and in Bradford, a very dangerous area of the UK. And I have a big suitcase that I bring that I'm moving, and I didn't unpack it. So every day, I would have to get my things out that I need, because I was so convinced that I'm going to make it annoying to unpack this, to remind me every day that I'm still in Morrison's and that I'm ready to leave. So I had it kind of pre-packed while moving in, and I didn't unpack it so that I can be ready in my mind to say, this is ready to be packed and I'm leaving. So that's like another strange thing that I did. And when I saw, how beautiful Serbia was, the culture, the people, that they value God as well, very highly here, I moved after I left Morrison's. And then 2 to 4 weeks later, I can't remember the exacts, I got that call from Rolex. And I remember laying on my bed, I think because of the time zone difference, it was, I think 9 or 10. He called at 8 or 9. He called, and I was like, and he was like, "Oh, hey, it's Connor here from Rolex." And I was like, "No way, like, really?" And by then, business had taken off a bit more. I had eventually left, and I was just moving into Serbia, and I was lying there. I contemplated it for a second. I went, "Oh, I don't know if I should." And I thought, no, this is the exact reason. This is the exact reason why I did it. So when I've left the supermarket, when I'm in Serbia, creating a new life in a way, building discipline, friends, this is the exact reason I did it. To remember the story, to give motivation to myself and maybe to others now, hopefully a little bit. And I went back the next day, and was it the next day or the same day? I can't remember. I think it might be the next day I collected it, and I came back the day after, and I was like really thankful, and I thanked God, Hvala Bogu, and that's the story with the watch.
What was the feeling when you picked it up?
It was crazy. I remember walking in and was sitting on this like side booth, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, it's coming out!" And he comes out with the box with his with his polish out and his glove, and I was like thinking, that's so unnecessary. Like, I'm not going to buy into the marketing too much. I did, and he comes out, puts it on, and I'm like, wow. And he's like, "Oh, this is yours now." I was like, "What? This is crazy!" And it had like my name on it, signed. I think like 5-year guarantee or 2-year guarantee. I was like, "Oh wow, this is amazing." I felt amazing, and it motivated me to then register for an even more insane watch that I definitely couldn't afford. And that's the story with the Rolex brand anyway. And I will keep this one forever. And I'll probably send this video to Connor actually, because he's a very nice guy, Connor Ballantyne, and
like the whiskey.
Yes, like the whiskey, exactly. And I look forward to seeing what's coming next.
Amazing, Caleb. I would wrap this up slowly. I just want to thank you again for coming here after 5 months of negotiating with me.
Of course.
I had a really pleasant time. I think we will have a lot of good things for the listeners and watchers, viewers, yeah.
Or watchers.
I hope my English was at least adequate.
Odlično.
And the next one, when we do in half a year or something, when I negotiate with you
What?
again, we're going to do it in Serbian. You have to learn
Oh, okay, that's the challenge.
When you learn Serbian, we have to do it again.
Okay, and then we can compare.
Do we agree on that? Do we have you on camera saying that?
Okay, when I'm ready, not 6 months, but when I'm ready.
No, when you learn Serbian.
Okay, when I learn Serbian, we do it.
5 years,
Može.
5 years.
Može. And thank you very much, for hosting. It's been great. It's been very interesting. Fantastic questions as well. Like, these are not, ones to think lightly about. They're very heavy questions, which I think is great content and good for me to think about. And thank you for being a great host.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There we go.
Ti si sledeći.
Good?